What is up, beautiful people? So this is the topic that people voted I speak about, which is everyone is a coach. Now, what do I mean by this? This isn't to say that every coach is a bad coach or not that people should not coach, but it's to say that everyone has decided that they should become one, and this brings mixed territory. If you've spent any sort of time on Instagram or social media as a whole, you'll see that there's a whole wave of new coaches coming around, and that's great for a lot of reasons. We're not going to focus on those. We're going to focus on the fact that there are some problems there. And the first one being there is no boundary to becoming a coach. Right now you can say, I am an online coach and I'm going to help you out, with nothing stopping you, and that's good and bad. See, the good thing is that people with just a good amount of experience can decide that they're going to start sharing that experience. Some of the best coaches don't have a massive qualification behind them, but they have a gross amount of experience over a decade. Now, that's not the case for everyone, and that's where the other side of the coin falls. See, the other side of this is that people who have done one competition or been to the gym for a bit or have a very baseline specific amount of information from an unreliable source have decided that they're going to share this and become a coach because they've seen it online and think it would be good. Now, I understand that people want to do it. I do it myself. It's a phenomenal career and I enjoy it for a lot of reasons, but, and it's a big but, not everyone should be becoming a coach. Now, the problem is because there's no prestige, there's no title to get into it, there's no protection or qualification, there's nothing I can say to stop people doing it, but at the same time, it's very hard to keep a legitimized industry of coaches and saying that if you are a coach, you should at least understand basic principles. And the problem is there are people who are coaching who don't, who aren't even close to that. Now, every person that we see at the moment, and a lot of the people who will see this are powerlifters, it's someone goes and does one competition and believes they should coach, but they don't know anything outside of their experience, they don't know the rest of the industry, they haven't read the literature, they haven't had enough time doing multiple competitions, and they themselves were probably coached by one person who had a very niche way of coaching in the first place. And so all they do is relay that same information and we get this saturated industry of everyone becoming a coach. Okay, but you might be thinking, why do you have such an issue with that? Why can't you just leave well enough alone? And the issue is that for many coaches, they are being categorized within the same field. You see, if someone has had a coach, they assume that is the standard of the industry, and I have this for a lot of people who eventually decide to go back into coaching. Can anyone else hear seagulls? See, one of the major issues that this actually causes is if you are a coach who has been doing it for a while, or you've just put the time into your processes, you do the detailed video analysis with a good amount of understanding of different movement prep and different biomechanics and so on, and you do programming with bespoke nature, nothing's copy and paste, you build it per person, you have the experience to do so. The issue is that the people who don't do those things, who have come into it brand new, they write their own program to other people pretty much and don't really know how to adjust. They don't have good communication skills yet, and they don't know anything really about different movement or how to cue outside of the cues they've once been given. The problem is that the person who goes to them makes the assumption that that's what coaching is. And so you have these people who are devaluing the entire industry. Now, this also falls into the issue of pricing, and this is something that is always debated. And because powerlifting is a new sport, it's not fundamentally got a lot of money behind it yet, and that's fine. But coaches are coaches across multiple fields, and if they're doing a good job, if they're doing your program specifically built for you and putting their time and experience and education in, and if they're taking the time to do video analysis with you, and if they communicate with you regularly, that is time you're paying for, a skill set and potentially an education as well. And so there should be a fundamental amount of money that goes behind that because it's a service, it's still something that's offered. If someone buys a camera, you're paying for the fact that they have a camera when they do the photography, if it's of a certain quality, as well as the experience they have to deliver that service, as well as the service itself and the time taken to do so. You're not just paying for one little thing, you should be paying for the experience. Now, here's the issue. When you take on a coach who has no experience, they don't put much time into it. Their program is sometimes written on Word documents and so on. Their communication skills aren't there. You might not immediately know there's an issue, but what the issue is they price those things one of two ways. Sometimes they price it fairly, which is very cheap, but then the people assume that all coaches should be cheap, even though the service is fundamentally different. Or they go the other way and they price themselves nice and high among the coaches with experience. So you have coaches charging 80, 90, 100 pounds who are very experienced, but you also have people who are very inexperienced thinking they should do the same. And again, you devalue that market. Or the other way, you have people charging 20 pounds for not great coaching, and at the same time you have those coaches who are very experienced who are charging at the upper end of that bracket, as they should do. And so we don't understand as the clientele where the difference is because we don't see it. And sometimes that's the fault of the coach for not marketing appropriately, because marketing is essential to show the value of your skills. But when the other people who don't know what they're doing are marketing well but can't deliver a service, we have this clash in this issue. So what do I think should actually happen? The first thing I'll say is, if you're thinking about coaching, don't become one, because you shouldn't just be thinking about it. You should be working towards it over time. And that is something fundamentally we seem to have forgotten. You don't just think about becoming a builder and then do it. You have to learn. So if you don't understand the current fields, the studies, what's going on roughly within the territory, if you haven't seen the waves of movement over time and how things change, and if you have barely done the thing yourself enough to understand what it's about or the principles of it, or if we're talking powerlifting specific, if you've done one comp, maybe value the job itself enough to understand that you have to take time to earn that position. In my ideal world, there would be a new qualification for online coaching. It's a different field, because on a basic level, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter about your personal life. What matters is that you understand how to communicate, that you understand the details and the nuances of programming, and that you understand the biomechanics, how to actually assess movement and not lead to symptomatic thinking. This is a bigger field than just going, I like lifting, I know how to squat, I'm a coach you. That's not how it works. Now, identifying a good coach is gonna be hard. It's probably not gonna be the person that charges £15 and writes it on a Word document, just a guess. But otherwise, it can be a little bit tricky. And that's down to the industry, it's down to us, but also inquiries. When you talk to coaches, ask them in detail about the services. Don't just take the ploy they give you as a sales tip. Ask them every question under the sun. Ask them why movements are in the program, why they're picking it, what their style of programming is, or how they identify themselves, how they go through their analysis, what it is they look at, what their communication is like, do they have examples? You can ask this as a customer. It is your job to do so. And by doing so, you enable coaches to stay with a degree of prestige, because they have to hold themselves to that standard, and that's what we want to see. Now, the thing I will say is there is always going to be a debate about education versus experience, and this is going to come down to a lot of different factors, and it's not for me to say right now what makes a good coach in that field. Should they be experienced? Abso-fucking-lutely. Should they have a degree of education? I kind of think so. Do they have to have masses of both? No. Do they have to have masses of one? Probably, in order to make up for the lack of the other. In terms of education, you can look at all the studies you want, but if you don't know about application, you're probably still shit. And if you know everything because you've done it for a decade, but you don't know anything that's going on within the world of literature, you're probably missing out some fundamental things. And you see this on weight cuts, on programming, on mechanical choices, and so on. So, in essence, like I say, if you're thinking of becoming a coach, don't. Not yet. You're going to have to put in a fair bit more work, and we're going to know when you're not doing that. As for the rest of us, we need to just make sure that if you're going to look for a coach, don't just look for what they posted on Instagram. That makes you part of the problem. Now, yes, I could sit and I could name and shame and point out specifics of flaws that people do, and that's quite easy, and to be honest, you should probably have picked some of that up from the rest of the video, but that's not what this is about. As an industry, we should respect that good coaching is a service, and we should also respect that we do not jump into every service under the sun without experience or practice or actually understanding what it means. Both of us as client and as coach need to be responsible for upholding the standard of what coaching is regarding the programming, the video analysis, the communication skills and the like, and whatever else they might offer. I think that covers the topic enough. We could go on all day, but we're not going to. I will be doing a podcast on this sort of topic, and I'm going to have a few features on. If you'd like to be featured either on this channel or that podcast, hit me up. And as I'm going to have to start learning to say, please like, share, comment and subscribe. It fucking helps. Gotta stop swearing though, because that's not going to help. Speak to you beautiful people soon. Peace.